right, we're up. Good. Welcome to the March 8, 2018 Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting. On this snowy day, we'll ask our town administrator to please read the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll amend or approve the agenda, and then a period of public comment. And then I have a number of amendments, recommended amendments to the agenda. One is to remove the update library AP warrant, Sharon McPherson. Remove consideration of enhancements to senior tax program, George Shea. Remove consideration of forming a housing trust committee, Grace Shepherd. Remove police department capital, fire department capital, and town buildings capital. And remove consideration of payroll warrant. The remaining.
Remove those things. How are you going to remove those? Isn't tonight the night we had to discuss the remaining things for the warrant?
We have next Thursday night.
I thought it had to be posted because the notice went out.
Oh, the
for
warrant will,
advisory.
yeah, the warrant will still be posted.
So why can't we talk about those things then? We might as well just talk about them anyway.
You can, there's
Yeah.
We don't
just
need a
not here to
presentation,
present
we
the
should just
items.
talk
Yeah, I
about
think
them.
we should talk about them.
Yep,
I agree.
So the remaining items would be consideration of requests for reserve fund transfer Nancy Hess collector, then consideration of town meeting articles and consider inclusion and or support of remaining articles, consideration of capital items, farm pond dock replacement, and then leaving the capital items in there for police, fire, and town buildings, and then review, finalize, sign town meeting warrant, then town administrator report, selectmen items, reports, meeting calendar. Next meeting is March 15th, and then March 17th at the advisory hearing. And then adjourn to executive session, may return to open session for MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21-2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Sean Colleen, CM&D Director, Facilities Manager.
Move approval? Second?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing about that last item, we're not going to be negotiating with Sean tonight because he's not here. So, I mean, is that a strategy session?
Yeah, to conduct
It's really to conduct
Strategy.
strategy discussions.
for contract.
Oh, wait.
Good
Negotiate,
catch,
conduct.
Okay. Strategy discussions for
Strategy.
contract negotiations, okay?
What? Yes.
You can.
So we have a move and a second, and with that amendment, all in favor? Okay, great, good.
Zach just said you had a public comment, but I know there wasn't a list up.
Yeah, you want to, but he wouldn't have been able to sign the list even if it had been there, but that's fine.
It's on me.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach, it's not, we just took about 6 things off our agenda, so you have 2 minutes.
I shouldn't need it. Hi, I'm Zachary Spillman of 26 Curve Street. On the back page of today's edition of the Hometown Weekly is a letter from me about my efforts to obtain a copy of the minutes of last year's negotiations between our school committees and the teachers union. Under the open meeting law, public bodies like the Dover-Sherborn School Committee negotiation team have to maintain minutes of all meetings, including executive sessions, and must disclose those minutes upon release unless an exception applies. Even if an exception applies, disclosure may still be required under the law. The burden of showing a need for non-disclosure is on the public body under the open meeting law. Under the public records law, all governmental records are presumed to be public records, and the custodian of the records has the burden to prove with specificity if any exception applies. Last month, in response to a complaint that I filed last year, the Division of Open Government in the Attorney General's office ruled that no exception applies to the minutes of last year's negotiations with the teachers union. And they made that ruling for good reason. The union knows what was said during the negotiations. The only people who don't know what happened in those negotiations and who need to see the minutes are the taxpayers. The school committees aren't negotiating with the taxpayers. They're representing us, or at least they're supposed to be representing us. Both the open meeting law and the public records law permit a lawsuit filed in Superior Court to enforce those laws. The remedies available in such a suit include compelling compliance with the law, nullifying any action taken in the meeting, and an award of attorney's fees. So I've been trying to get these minutes. They won't give them to me. The Attorney General's office said they have to. They still won't give them to me. In 1988, the Supreme Judicial Court explained, quote, "It is essential to a democratic form of government that the public have broad access to the decisions made by its elected officials and to the way in which the decisions are reached." I've been seeking that access now for over a year. The school committees continue to use secrecy to protect their political positions. That leaves me with few options other than litigation. I don't want to sue the school committees, but I don't have much of a choice. As a resident and a taxpayer, if I do file a suit, I invite you to join that lawsuit on behalf of the people of Sherborn who have a right to know what happened in those negotiations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Zach. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is consideration of a request for reserve fund transfer. Nancy Hess, collector.
Actually, Jeannie told me we wouldn't be considering this tonight without Sharon, but I'm happy to discuss it because I'm clear on the reasons why. As you probably remember, we had several things happen this fall that impacted my office in particular. We didn't have we lost our treasurer, and so you asked the assistant treasurer to help out filling in the treasurer's office, which meant she's my assistant. She was out of my office. I needed more clerical time to help carry on for her. Then she became very ill and was out of office, and so I was asked to do some of the treasurer duties as well as not having an assistant collector. So again, it hit my clerk's hours. And then I had the misfortune of having one of my clerks be offered a bigger and better job. So I have a new clerk, and it takes training time. So I'm going to be short hours when it comes to our high collection time in May and so forth. So I calculated how many hours I have funds for, and I'm requesting a reserve fund transfer of $2,931.72 to get me to the end of the year. My clerks are scheduled at 12 hours a week.
Anybody have any questions? I had a couple of questions. So when the treasurer, and I forget this because we probably were involved with this. I think we were, but I don't remember how that was funded. So when your person went and worked for the treasurer, was the treasurer paying the salary, or were you paying the salary?
The treasurer's, she was the assistant treasurer, so
Right.
she would go out of my office and work there during some of the hours that she was usually in my office. I would have clerical work cover. She would come back and do work in my office for her regular time. Then she was out sick, and she was out for 2 months. So,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, Nancy. Was your office paying for work that
no,
was being
no,
done for the
no.
treasurer?
When she was assistant treasurer, she was paid as assistant
Okay.
treasurer. But she didn't cut back her hours in my office. It's just that she couldn't be in my office during the time that I was open. So, for some of the time, not a lot of the time.
So you didn't have to pay her, or you did? When she
I
wasn't
paid
working
her,
there?
she did her hours. She did her hours for me. But they just weren't always the time when I needed staff to cover counter and that kind of thing. So I had to have more clerical time in the office. And then, of course, she was gone, and I had to be doing turnovers and things, so I needed more clerk time. And I will remind you that I did not ask for any additional compensation for the job in the treasurer's office, so I'm asking now that you fund some more
Yeah,
time
I
for my
mean,
clerks.
I trust that you need the money. I just am trying to figure out in my own head how having somebody fill in the treasurer's department costs you money. That's what I can't get my head around. It sounds like they were then not available for their usual shifts, and you had to bring somebody in to do those shifts. Is that what it was? Or?
Well, yeah, my office is not a one-man office anymore most of the time. And when she had to go and do turnovers or do things in the treasurer's office, it meant that I needed somebody in as a clerk. So I used additional hours for that, but the big hit was when she was gone entirely, and I had to have somebody help cover her position in my office as assistant, and you appointed Melissa to do that, but then, and that came out of clerk hours, and because we were still paying for the assistant collector. And then when I had to do treasure work, I still needed my office covered. So it ate up my budget faster than it usually would for clerical time.
Anybody else have any questions? I'm still not sure I understand, but,
Move approval.
okay.
Yeah, I think it comes, one question I have is, I know we've talked about it in the past, but it's like a lot of moving parts between a treasurer's office and collector's office, where many towns have this as one office.
Well, we were very fortunate that it wasn't one office and one person this year, because we would have been really in tough straits if we lost the treasurer, who was the treasurer collector, and then we had the one who was acting treasurer and collector be out as well. We would have been in a lot of trouble. So this way we were able to stabilize for that period of time by using the assistant treasurer in the treasurer's place, and bringing some of my clerical help in to cover for her.
My point is, though, if it was all in the same office, you were talking about office coverage and that kind of thing, it seems like it would have been a more efficient.
Well, I'm not here to litigate that right
I'm just-
now. You know I have
wanna
very
make a point.
strong feelings
Oh, I know.
about
I know
that,
you
so
do.
don't get me on my soapbox.
I was going to say, I think it's pretty much of a moot point, because that's not the way we're set up. And
But I guess
and
for
this
this.
is, your office stepped up and filled in, stepped into the breach because we didn't have the staffing. So, did you get a second on your motion, Paul?
No.
Second?
All right, so we,
Yeah, that's a good point, Chuck. I mean, this is about the hours that she needs for the way we're set up now, so.
Right, and there was nobody else that stepped up to fill that void, so.
I would think the one thing that's been clear over the many years that Nancy has served the town is that she's pretty frugal. And very careful with the dollar, the taxpayer's dollar. So if she feels she
you.
needs this, and she's documented it, I think we should support it.
yeah, maybe George or Jeff can help me with this, because I think it gets to a bigger question, which is when we fund staff, right? When we fund a budget for staff, do we take into account that somebody's gonna have however many weeks of sick leave that they get, and however many weeks of vacation that they get, and however many weeks of personal time that they get, so that when we staff an office, we're really staffing like 3/4 of a position instead of one position?
I think, I don't know definitively, but I think this circumstance sounds to me more like short-term disability. I think the staffing numbers include normal vacation time and whatever the sick day allowance is, but this 2-month absence, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, sounds to me like maybe, I don't know how we treat short-term disability. It sounds like, and Sharon's not here tonight, it sounds like maybe there's a way we have short-term disability insurance, which I'm sure we do. That could extend the solution, I don't know.
She had enough sick time that she just took her sick time for that.
I think we've run into this where we've needed reserve fund transfers and overtime for the police department when they've had sick or injured officer, that kind of thing. So I think it's typical. We don't budget for.
Well, I think that's right, and I think we've found that out in our office this year too, which
Right.
is, I mean, it's a big hardship on the people who are left working when advisory doesn't think about it. And when we go through all this you know, all these exercises about a staff position and a full-time staff position or not a full-time staff position, we still should be taking account of the fact that even a full-time staff position isn't really a full-time staff position. You know, we've got a, I won't say we have a generous benefits program, we just have a program, a typical program where you get sick leave and vacation time, and that means when we're as thinly staffed as we are at this town hall in all the offices, it means when somebody's out, stuff doesn't get done. And eventually you have to get it covered somehow. And Jeannie usually covers it. Okay. We'll talk this through. I think it's a policy question. I don't have anything against this particular transfer. I just feel like we have to do a better job of figuring out how to do flex time if we're gonna be this thinly staffed in all these positions. So you get a motion, a second, all in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for stepping into the breach.
All right, what's next on this thing? Now we're up to town meeting articles, or do we want to move those after the capital stuff?
Probably move them after the
That's
cap.
what I think too. So should we talk about the capital items? The first one is Farm Pond dock replacement. And are you gonna explain it, Jeannie? Doug's gonna explain it? Okay. We saw a bunch of numbers and some proposals, but it would be helpful. Be helpful to know what we're looking at here. Enough money for a good copy machine too. Go ahead, yeah, sure.
The current dock system is 25 years old. It's, needs to be replaced. Safety-wise, it's pressure-treated wood, so we decided this would be the year to do it. We have numbers that range anywhere from 75,000 to close to 100,000. We have received a commitment from Recreation for 25,000 out of their revolving fund that they have to spend by 2020. I'm going to take 50,000 out of the Farm Pond revolving fund that we use for capital items for Farm Pond. So in case we need the balance, we're asking the town for the remaining 25,000.
Why, let me ask you a question, just looking at the budget or the numbers for the Farm Pond revolving fund, looks like it's very well funded. Now, why wouldn't we use that to pay for the whole thing? Other than the 25 from rec?
Because we could if we wanted to, but next year we have more capital items. We're gonna have to probably put a new roof on the bathhouse. We have to do some work down at the guard shack also this year, because we have some issues with rot, and that needs to be fixed.
And the sidewalk that goes from the bathhouse up and over the hill and down is in need of repair. Tree roots are coming up through the asphalt.
What would a dock system that only costs $75,000 look like?
Are you familiar with what's there?
Yeah.
It's the exact same layout. It's just, instead of using pressure-treated wood, we're using a word I cannot pronounce, aluminum.
Heavy duty.
Heavy duty. And it will just be a lot safer for the kids. And now when the docks are put together, there's a gap of about 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
Now they make caps that will fit over that. So it just turns out to be a better, safe structure for everyone. And it still will be put in and taken out each season.
I think also the difference is that we asked them to quote PVC, which is more expensive than composite, and that adds to the closer to the $100,000.
What's the difference with the PVC versus composite? I know what the difference is, but what?
I've seen anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000.
No, but I'm saying, like, why would you use do you think the PVC is a nicer product
I'm doing
that
more
lasts
research on
longer,
that
or-
right now. One of the things is, with a dock, you want it to be able to sit in the water and stay there. That's where the composite really comes in. It's the weight that holds it. The PVC comes in as a favor because we have to take it out and put it back in again. So we're, winching it out, putting it on the dock, so it's a trade-off.
And PVC is much lighter than composite.
Oh, okay.
Weight-wise, yes.
What was the useful life of the prior dock system that was installed in 1993?
Boy, what's the life expectancy? I've only been on the job for 3 years. I know that for the last 2 to 3 years, they've been spending quite a bit of money on, the floats underneath have been cracking.
The turn
And
boards.
And
the
what's the
turn boards
useful-
are very heavy and out of skew.
What's the useful life of either the composite or the PVC system?
They're saying 20 to 25.
So presumably pressure-treated would be the same or shorter? Have we replaced the pressure-treated?
I am not sure if pressure treated would hold up as well as the older pressure treated. Back then, it was a much higher number of, I forgot the ingredient that was in those poles back then.
And can we get any, is there any trade-in resale value on the old dock system?
No, except for the floats. I believe we have something like 47 floats or 50 floats, and there may be a market for those for someone that's, wants to replace what they have.
Any idea what the market would be for that?
No idea.
I thought this is the same size as the other one?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
And was there an issue with the other one in terms of they were afraid of kids getting under the dock and things? I remember there was a concern about that at one point. Was that addressed, or would this address that?
That I'm not aware of in the last
No?
3 years.
I don't think there's any way that we could keep kids from swimming under the dock.
Okay.
I mean, the floats are under there, we'd have to completely close in everything but the float. It would considerably add to the cost.
We could tell them they can't go swimming.
Can't go swimming. Nobody can go swimming.
Can you mention the handicap accessibility piece?
Right.
compared to
With the new ADA laws that came out back in, I believe it was the mid-'90s, that we have to provide access to the beach. Now, for you to get out to the dock, you walk on the beach, then walk 20 feet in the water, and then there's no ladder right there, so you kind of have to get up onto the dock any way you can. There would be a 20-foot ramp, 6 feet wide, that you can just walk up onto the dock now.
On
So
one
that'll
side.
connect the beach?
On one side.
That'll connect the beach to the thing?
Correct.
So of all the differences in all these pages, I try to sort out why there was these little differences between all of them. Which one do you recommend? What do you think is the best thing for us to do?
That's a good question. I'm still really stuck. I talked to 2 consultants today. One said that you definitely don't want PVC, and the other one said it's the best that's out there. So I've got to find 3 or 4 more people I can call and pick their brain and figure out why. The composite has a track record that it lasts a long time. I believe it's a 15 to 20-year warranty on the composite, where the PVC was a lifetime warranty. That's something we have to look at.
This will also be put out to bid, so they may propose
Correct.
one and an option for another, so you'd have the
Right.
pricing on both, so.
The criteria that I have is a little different than what you've been looking at. My concern is that Fire Pond is a great treasure for the town. And
Absolutely.
cleanliness and the purity of the water is admirable and needs to be preserved. And so when I look at different ways to do these docks, I tried to figure out what was the most environmentally safe, the least likely to have anything leach into the water and affect the quality of the water. And pressure-treated wood uses copper nitrate and arsenic and all kinds of things,
That was the one I was thinking of.
which I would not want to see in Farm Pond now that we know all the environmental effects. So that to me is not the way to go. So then it leaves us composite and the PCV.
PVC.
The PCV strikes me as sometimes having environmental consequences, where stuff leach out of that stuff into water. And the composite stuff has aluminum in it, I believe, and that sometimes can also leach into the water. So trying to figure out which is better and which is worse. I think we're better staying away from the plastics of based organic chemicals and more towards the aluminum. I think the aluminum would be a little safer. So
As a decking?
yeah, it's something that putting aluminum in the pond is not the best move either, frankly, but I think it's the best of the alternatives, my own sense of it. Again, using the criteria of preserving the quality of the water. I think that's the least harmful of what you've laid out here.
Aren't the hulls of all the kayaks and canoes that are in the pond extruded plastic and PVC?
Fiberglass.
Probably.
Yeah.
The
Fiberglass.
aluminum, the heavy-duty aluminum that we were referring to is gonna be basically the structure with the decking in between. The decking is either PVC or composite. The actual structure of the dock system will be heavy-duty aluminum. And the turnboards and the decking will be laid in that aluminum frame, basically.
Yeah, one of the concerns we have with the aluminum was, it doesn't come in a lot of colors for docks, and so it would be a bright silver, and I'm not sure if that would look great on the pond. I'm trying to downplay it and not make it stick out. Where it is now, it's composite.
We have samples downstairs if you want to look at it.
So you said the current one is the composite?
Yeah.
But we don't need to make that decision here today, because we're not, this point of this discussion is not to award a bid to a contractor on a final product. The issue before us tonight is, do we think that the docks need to be replaced? And that seems to be a no-brainer. And therefore, what amount of money should we make available so that fine people working on it and studying the issues have the flexibility to pick the very best choice?
I think as we talked with Capital, we said that we're gonna ask the town and you for the additional $25,000. If we do not use that, we're not gonna take less from recreation or less from Farm Pond. We would just not use the full $25,000, and it would just not be borrowed.
Yeah, except that what'll end up happening is it'll go, somebody will say, well, we need a new roof on the bathhouse, or we need this, and we didn't spend the 25,000 last year. So it's gonna end up being
No,
spent on Farm
But
Pond
we would have to
somehow.
come back anyway.
Well, we would, but that's
But
how
it
things
would-
work in this town.
If you do it, if you specify that it's for a dock system, it can't be used for anything else.
But I want to get this order in. I'm not sure if this is Canadian aluminum or Chinese aluminum.
Oh, that's
Based on what happened this afternoon, we might want to lock
That
in
was,
that
that
price.
was one of the questions
The
I was
tariffs.
working with this afternoon. Is it coming out of free cash?
What?
Free cash or capital?
We don't know.
Okay.
Advisory usually. does that.
Advisory is the one.
Oh, handles that, okay.
Yeah.
I'm new to this side of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm prepared to put this on the warrant so the voters can consider it. If I could take the half step, I know there's two issues. First, do we want this on the warrant? The second issue is, are we gonna support it at town meeting? But the first question is, we're trying to finalize the warrant for the upcoming town meeting. I would move that we include this item as one of the capital items on the town meeting warrant.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So we'd add it to Article 10?
Yes.
But so,
I guess, yeah, but I also, it's on there already as a selectman
You
item.
look at the list.
oh, you're right, yep.
You know, and I guess what I think should be done before town meeting is somebody should figure out what you can buy with $75,000. And if, you know, if you told these vendors, hey, we've got $75,000 to spend, and we need to put the thing in and out of the water, we need to have you install it, what do we get? And see what we get, and then see whether it's worth spending the money on top of that, because most of these seem to come in a hair over 75, but I'm not sure what all the add-ons are in every case. And maybe there's a way to get it within the budget, I don't know.
That's fine.
I'd also like to, I think, I agree that we should have it on the warrant, but just maybe have a explanation of what you're gonna, I know tonight I asked you about what you're gonna spend the fund, because people will ask, how much do you have in the fund, and, well, why wouldn't you just use that money? So have a good explanation of what your capital plan is over the next few years, just so, people know what your plans are, rather than just keeping the money in the fund to keep it there.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we need to vote to put it on the warrant, right?
Yes.
All in favor? Okay. So it's gonna go on the warrant.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you both, this reflects a lot of work. Okay. We've got Chief Kinney, if you,
Just in time?
just in time.
Right into the hot seat.
We just gave somebody a hard time about $25,000, Chief, so.
So, let's talk about your $1 million fire.
Hey, thanks for all the great work you guys have been doing the past 2 storms here, this past 4 days or whatever it is, 5 days.
You know what, this town is, we got a great group of people, in many ways spoiled because, you know, it's amazing the turnout that we get and the personnel we get to show up to help and to go assist people in these storms, and whether it's pumping out a basement or standing by with live arcing wires, whatever it may be. So they've done a good job.
Absolutely.
All right. So obviously, I know I have the big, huge, the big, huge ask here, but after a few meetings with capital budget and using their guidance, you know, we've been able to put together justify the need for the project to replace engine 2 and engine 6. I think you all have some of the documentation with the NFPA standards discussing the age and the potential liability that exists with having apparatus that is, you know, in the industry we considered a rolling liability. The other thing is I was able to put together specifications and go out to bid to get firmer numbers, you know, so that we were, just to confirm that I was in the right ballpark or in the right, you know, with the numbers that I submitted originally. And, you know, I think fortunately that was the case. You know, we're in the ballpark of what I had proposed initially of the being in the 550 and 450 range for those 2 pieces. So I think the number that we came up with in the last meeting with Capital was $1,050,000, and that left the necessary money to properly equip the apparatus as well. And part of the reason that I have chosen to do that is it eliminates me having to come back and ask for $80,000 in radios next year, and, you know, air packs in 4 years and those kind of things. So what I've chosen to do is take the NFPA recommended equipment list, and anything that we have that is over 20 years old will be replaced. So whether that's a adapter or air pack, air bottles, all those things have a shelf life by NFPA of about 20 years. So instead of us having, you know, in 10 years a huge ask of another $260,000 to replace 26 air packs all at once or whatever it may be, you know, I'm trying to do it as if we buy a truck, that's a big capital investment. The larger ticket items on that apparatus last the life of the apparatus as well. So I'm trying to buy those with the apparatus. In other words, so that I don't have a bunch of capital ask repeatedly. So realistically, you know, my capital ask in the future, I shouldn't have to ask for anything until engine 3 is replaced. in 2023 or 2024. And, you know, right now, with the way that vehicle was designed and specified, we may be able to get an extra couple of years out of it and push it to 25 and still be compliant. So that's something that is a potential for us to do, you know, unless it bites the dust in the next couple of years, but we still got 4 or 5 years, maybe an extra 3 or 4 good life with that unit. So after this ask, you know, barring anything catastrophic happening, I shouldn't be coming with a large capital ask. What we've done too is originally on the capital improvement plan for this year, we had a large number set aside, or that we were going to request for radios. I took that out because if we're able to get the apparatus, I'll be able to get some of those radios, and then the rest we'll use a grant to. We wrote a grant. Hopefully we'll get it, the AFG grant to secure the radios, which will improve our communication situation, and we can probably pass some of those radios down. And discussing with CMND, we might be able to, you know, get some of those radios so there'll be extras for them, for the contractors and things of that nature. So it'll help our public safety, you know, our public safety all around, from CMND to police, everybody. So.
Okay. Questions?
Which, actually, I was gonna ask, I know you're on capital, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have discussed this already, or?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say a couple things. One, just in general, I am on capital budget, so on any capital items, I talk about anything that we want back from that. Capital budget hasn't voted on any of them yet. We're voting next Thursday morning, on all the capital items. But we've met with, Aaron probably, 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, 3 times. I think 3 times.
So, and this last time, he went through about 4 bids, on 4 different, actually really 8 bids, 4 bids for each truck. So, we went through the bids with him on each truck, in addition, the additional equipment on the truck. So we haven't voted yet, but we're supportive of, when we met with him last week, supportive of the proposal for, increasing this amount to $1,050,000, which I think maybe in the warrant article here, you might want to put the engine numbers, but item 2A is, the pumper is actually truck 6.
Engine 6, yeah.
Fire truck number 6, so that might help people. And item 2B is the hose tender, and that's engine 2.
Yeah.
And so what we're gonna vote on, but what I believe we'll recommend is what you have here is $450,000 for, the first truck, engine 6, and $600,000. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Aaron, for, the hose tender, engine 2?
My question I had was, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Looking at 2 trucks in 1 year.
Yes.
Is there one that's more critical than the other?
You know, I've been asked that question. Actually, it was one of the questions that was asked in the first capital meeting. And, you know, to follow what Chief Dow shared, you know, asking which one is more critical or more important is almost like, you know, asking a parent, which child do you love the most? You know, what I was able to identify in going over our pre-plans and things like that, they both serve a very critical role in terms of, like, for example, in all of these storms, Engine 6 we've been running its doors off because it's the only large apparatus that has 4-wheel drive, and that, you know, has a tighter turning radius and is able to maneuver and get us in places when the driveways are narrow, when we have limbs and trees down. So it plays a critical role in that aspect, as well as one of the things identified in our hazard mitigation plan is our urban interface potential and wildland fire potential. And the way that I designed Engine 6's replacement is to be a United States Forest Service certified Type 3 and Type 6 wildland fire engine, which, you know, would address some of that hazard mitigation plan. Is actually it would be something that would be favorable in the hazard mitigation plan, us to have that capability to have a substantial firefighting capability, whether that be in the urban interface area where we have neighborhoods and things that brush up against wildland or town forest land, or for if we happen to get a fire in one of the town forests. Obviously, we can't do some of the things that you'd like to do in hazard mitigation for, you know, burning off undergrowth, burning off the fuel layers. We can't do that, so we have to be prepared to fight it. So that's one of the things I did with the design of that. The new design of that unit is to make it compliant with the United States Forest Service as well as NFPA standards, so that it becomes more versatile. So it can do inclement weather, it can do first response on a structure fire, it has to, but also has that critical component of being an urban interface type fire engine as well. And with Engine 2, obviously, that is basically our water supply system. It's our hydrant system. So we have the series of dry hydrants around town, and we lay pipe above ground, basically. Instead of them being up underground and pressurized, we pressurize them ourselves and do it above ground. So, they both play a critical role. If we were pushed in a position where we absolutely had to choose, I think we would have to go with probably Engine 2, being that it is, it's not the oldest, but, if we have a fire and we don't have a means, or it breaks down and we don't have a means to create the water source, we got big problems. So, that would be the one we would have to use. But, in all of our target hazards, both of those units have critical assignments. At the school, Engine 6 is supposed to go into the courtyard around back to start the firefight from there, those kind of things. So, they both have identified roles and purposes. So, they're both important. I think the thing that I realized is, a lot of credit goes to the previous chiefs and also the maintenance and care that have been taken to these vehicles, because to have a vehicle that's 32 years old that's run its course as being the original Engine 1. We've had Engine 1 replaced now, won't go through a whole replacement cycle, and we still have the unit that was the original Engine 1 running as Engine 6, and, Engine 2 was bought in 1990. So, to have almost, basically 2 units that are 30 years old, when NFPA specifies their lifespan at being 20 to 25 years, that's with refurbishment. Neither one of them's been refurbished. Obviously the personnel and CM&D have done a great job maintaining and taking care of these vehicles. I think, it's a credit to when there's an investment made, by the taxpayers and by this town. Obviously the personnel take really good care of it and make sure that it lasts longer than even it's supposed to. And I think that's something that we would look forward to continuing, that level of service and care. It's a credit to the personnel. They don't take lightly the investment that's made. When you all are making tough decisions, advisory's making tough decisions, from a financial point of view, they take care of and maintain the equipment that we're awarded and given, in order to be able to provide service to this town.
Well, I guess my question is there one it wasn't, I guess, which is more critical? I know they're both critical pieces of machinery. Is there one that's in worse condition than the other? Are they both?
Not necessarily. They're both in pretty tough condition. They both had issues with pump tests. They both technically failed their pump test this year. They both have had little issues here and there with brakes. And one of the things I did do too was I studied intently trying to see if we could refurbish them and bring them up to current standard, and if that would be financially feasible. Well, the initial pricing to just refurbish Engine 2 was going to be like $360,000. But, when I looked at that, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be less than buying a new one by maybe $150,000, but you still have 30-year-old bones or 32-year-old bones inside of a truck that looks like it's new on the outside, which, again, doesn't necessarily solve what we're trying to, the biggest thing I'm concerned about is reliability. I don't want the brakes to fail on someone. I don't want the pump to fail when we're actually pumping on a house fire. Or the last major fire we had in town, for example, the hydraulic brake on the hose reels in Engine 2 didn't work, so we couldn't lay the hose to provide water. Unfortunately, that was a barn, and it was pretty much a total loss upon arrival. But had that been a home where you had to save someone, and water supply was critical, that would have been a bad situation. So I just don't want to be in that situation or have the town be in that situation again.
That's a good story to start with, I think. That's a pretty serious situation.
I'm going to add one thing to that, and you can do it better than I can in a minute, Aaron, but there's also, reliability is important, but actually to me, an even more important factor is manpower safety. Because these trucks don't have a lot of the safety, but particularly Engine 2, where the reel is whipping these hoses in and out, whether we're paying it out or paying it in, and we have a manual system as opposed to a remote control automated system. So so you wanna add a little bit about that?
Yeah, the way Engine 2 is operated now, and if some of the documentation I put in there about NFPA standards, there was a huge revision made to the automotive standard for fire apparatus made in 1991. Engine 2 was produced in 1990, so it was right before those huge advances were made in apparatus safety, and it was people being able to ride on the exterior of apparatus was outlawed. All cabs had to be enclosed, things of that nature. Well, Engine 2 doesn't have an enclosed cab. The hose deployment system requires someone to stand on the back bumper and operate it, and that inherently is dangerous. It's probably more dangerous what we've identified, or for me, it's a greater risk than us fighting a fire at this point. Because a coupling hitting someone in the head, they're going to be significantly injured or die. Those couplings, those big aluminum couplings, they easily weigh 10 or 15 pounds, and you imagine that whipping around on a reel, coming off a reel or going back on a reel, and if something happens and we hit a curve the wrong way or turn the wrong way, and that slaps whoever's operating that reel, it creates a huge hazard. So those are the big safety concerns with Engine 2. The other example is neither one of them have shoulder strap belts for seat belts. They're just lap belts. And sometimes the lap belt in Engine 6 doesn't even function properly. I've had the opportunity to drive it and use it to help CM&D and drive it on a couple of calls. And, there are times where I have seriously debated, it scares me sometimes to have it in frontline service. But knowing, especially in inclement weather, like, last night we used it extensively because it's four-wheel drive, before all of the, before CM&D had a chance to clear the roads, or as, it was amazing how fast the snow was accumulating last night and going places. Having that four-wheel drive to get up and down certain hills and driveways was important. And obviously we use the smaller trucks to respond to some of those incidents as well. But, when you're talking about going to a possible structure fire or smoke investigation inside a residence, it's the only larger vehicle with the ability to mount an offensive attack on a structure fire that has four-wheel drive for us. So, it plays a critical role. And, the other thing with Engine 6 that, I shared with them too, the air packs on these trucks, the breathing apparatus that we use, they cost about $9,000 a set, right? So on Engine 6, those are held on the outside of the truck. So we're exposing, what amounts to $15,000 to $30,000 worth of valuable equipment to the elements being mounted on the outside of a truck. That's because it was built before current standards require all of those things to be mounted inside the cab in a locking mechanism. And so right now we've got what amounts to it's just a tarp covering with a Velcro strap. Well, 32 Velcro doesn't work very well. So one trip out of the station, it's blown open, and we've got, the elements blowing in on this critical, piece of equipment that, my personnel are expected to put on and wear. And, there are times where we've had issues or the equipment's been compromised because of the way it's stored or mounted on the apparatus. So there's a bunch of improvements and little things like that they become a big issue after you put them all together in the total package of things.
Thank you. You referred a couple times, and you've got it in here, to urban interface pumper. What does that
Yes.
mean?
So basically, the engine is designed to be able to be capable of handling off-road, or say you had a fire in a neighborhood, one of the neighborhoods here, and there was a fire encroaching upon residences. That unit is capable of driving off-road, whether it be in their backyard, whether it be across rocky terrain, whatever it is. It has certain specifications, and it's tilt table testing, its angle of approach and departure allow it to have a larger ground clearance, but also to travel off-road efficiently, to be able to stage in those places to mount a firefight or to create a fire line to stop the encroachment upon a residence or a neighborhood.
Basically, 80% of the houses in Sherborn.
Well, again, the issue before us tonight is to finalize a warrant, and therefore, are we gonna put these items on the warrant for consideration by the voters? And I would say we should, based on what I've heard and the recommendation of the fire chief, who's
I'll second that, Tom.
I'll third it.
Okay, all in favor of that? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Can I confirm the amounts again?
It's 450 and 600, David.
Yeah, you know, what I'm looking at doing honestly is the way the bids came out, there is hopefully we'll award it all to one company, so we're only dealing with one group of people and hold them all accountable. So, but I guess if we split it evenly, 600 and 450, that works because the equipment for engine 2 is more expensive. That's why that number is a little higher. You know, just the hose alone is like $60,000 or $50,000. So that's why that number is a little higher for engine 2.
And these are, these take like 6 to 8 months to deliver?
Engine 6 will take a shorter duration. It'll be about 6 to 8 months. Engine 2 will be, it may take up to a year because it's a full custom build.
I just wanted to point out by the time you deliver them and short-term borrow them and then actually long-term bond them to pay a principal payment, you're looking at like 2021 before that principal payment would actually be on a tax bill.
Okay.
And the other thing, there's some, reading through the specs, we got some incentives too from a couple of manufacturers that if we pay for the chassis up front, we'll get like $10,000 back, which helps. I mean, every little bit helps. I figure that helps in the equipment pool significantly. $10,000 we can do a little bit with, you know, so.
And the other suggestion was to have item 2A identified as engine 6, and item 2B as engine 2 on the
In
warrant.
parentheses after the.
On the warrant.
Yeah,
David. That's a good
yeah,
idea.
I think that's a good idea.
Excellent.
Okay.
David, one thing, thank you, this is just on this list, David, of the NOIs, you had marked where we had voted to include it. I think, when we're talking about capital, I'm just looking at this on the CM&D stuff.
We voted to
We
include
voted
those.
for the sweeper and the modification to the truck, but not the radios, because Chuck wanted to have clarification of why there was a
Right,
different
right, so I
price
put-
between the,
I put it in the wrong box.
yeah,
then.
yeah. So if you could just,
Thanks.
Good work.
How are we gonna handle the CM&D requests?
I mean, I think we've already voted to put 2 of those on the warrant, and the other one was the radio, and I don't know. It was
Yeah,
really-
that was the clarification.
There was clarification on the bids, despite the 13 number digit identifier, the two do line up. They were the same
Oh, okay.
price quote. So I would move to put item 10, 3B,
3C.
sorry, 3C on the warrant.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, that's on. And now we've got, the police chief stuff, right?
Right.
And he's not here. These are also not, I mean, everything doesn't seem as big anymore. I think we've talked about $1,050,000 of 2 fire engines, but
Which of our kids we're sending to college?
these are relatively, it's a relatively lower ask on the police capital stuff, and I know some of that's gone through a lot of vetting with capital budget, right? Jeff, can you give us a little background? Is there,
Yeah.
In terms of individual components,
or even just how far you've gotten and whether this is pared down?
every capital item on the budget list here except town buildings, which you
Okay.
can imagine Sean's been pretty busy, so, town buildings is the only one that we haven't vetted, so.
Okay, but,
It's coming, so Sean came to us last week, and we walked through, even in the end, the town buildings is gonna be a little bit fuzzy, because, he's got some projects that we approved that were the $505,000 approved last year, but some of them won't complete, and scope may change a little bit, so he's got some issues with that. He's got rolled out some of the library projects, and then he's got some new projects in town, so, long story short, we're voting on all capital next Thursday, as I told you, and Sean's representing town buildings next Thursday.
okay. But as far as portable radios, taser controls, desktop computers, and emergency response, and 1 cruiser,
Correct.
we're good?
We're good on all this.
All right, so do we have a motion to keep those on?
So move.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay. I think we should leave the town buildings on too. It doesn't have to have a number next to it, right?
We can take the
ended up
number.
at 10 last week, but I think we should just wait and see what
But as far as the warrant goes, we wouldn't put a number on the warrant anyway, would we, David?
Yeah, normally it would be printed with a number on the warrant, but you can always revise the number down,
Yeah, you can't revise the number up,
right?
so I'd leave it at 400.
Leave it at 4 then.
exactly.
Okay, so second on that, all in favor? Okay, then that's in Pine Hill School improvements. We talked to the region.
Right, we haven't talked about
We really didn't talk to Pine Hill.
We went through Pine Hill, I can tell you what's on Pine Hill also if you want.
Yes.
That'd be good.
Total's 161, as you can see there. That-
Is it from their budget, is it from their capital plan?
Yes and no, you know how they get the onsite insight reports? The
Right.
schools just redid this past year their onsite insight, so there were some things that weren't in last year's onsite insight, only because they completely did an update of our onsite insight. And some things dropped off as new things came on, so yes and no, sort of, but it's consistent with it.
Okay.
And it's consistent with the new onsite insight. So Pine Hill's costs include $35,000 for a new phone system, which it's actually already paid.
Yes.
The question was whether it was reserve fund transfer or not. They're kind of limping along in the phone system. They're replacing hallway floors for $55,000. They're repairing the concrete entranceway on the front of the building, $35,000. They're replacing the cafeteria floor for $25,500. And they're re-insulating the walk-in refrigerator box for $11,000. That totals $161,500. We went through all those things and, all the materials were already on the state bid list. They didn't have quotes yet, but they had vendors that were giving them prices, but they weren't for a quote, so we're comfortable with the amount.
Okay.
So I move to put it on the warrant.
At that
Second.
number, 161.5, all in favor? Okay. DS, I thought we voted.
I thought the regional school, we
We
voted.
voted, I think we voted to accept the intermunicipal agreement.
Didn't we also vote to put their capital on or not?
I don't
All
remember.
right, well, let's
Well,
move to
I'm
put
so
them
moved.
on.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, good.
Do we usually put a number for that one? I was sort of surprised we didn't have one in there.
For
what?
For regional, it's in here, 537.
Oh, is it in there?
Yeah.
Total, our share is 233.
It's not in the in the warrant.
It's not in the warrant itself, okay.
That's what I meant.
But it's on, we have this list,
Yeah, I'm
Jeff.
sorry.
Yes, I have that, but I'm wondering.
Not in the article.
Every other capital item's on the warrant is a dollar.
Do we usually put a, Jeannie, do we usually have a number in the?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's always in the advisory committee, yes, but the warrant, we never specified.
It's weird.
Okay.
So the regional school capital budget, though, is, I believe it's 510.
Yeah, we have the number. We met with them last time.
Yeah, this isn't right what's on here.
Oh, okay.
It's 510 instead of 537?
510 now, yeah.
Okay. But if the number's not going on the warrant for tonight's purposes, it doesn't matter so much.
Combine both.
Okay, all right. Good deal. So that gets us through all the capital stuff.
So the next one would be the use of free cash,
we
because
already
that's the
voted.
only, that says we haven't taken a vote on that yet. So can I move we put that on the warrant? as-
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, that's a good one. Some of this had to do with language, though, too. We needed to get through and talk about some language. So, was the language set on 13, David? This is the collections and permit holds one?
Yeah, this says we voted 5-0 to put that on the warrant.
We did, but I don't know if the language was final. Is the language final in here now? Is this what Barbara recommended? Nancy, do you know?
This is the collections article, Nancy. Yeah, this one, this language wasn't really changing. This was all,
Mike, I think you see the parenthetical comment in section 2A. There's a BJSA1. I'm assuming this is Barbara
J.
St. Andre's
Andre?
comment. So infer from that that this is her revision.
So we probably don't want her initials in the warrant?
Probably not.
Okay.
I would move to delete that.
Take that out.
She made very few changes, and they didn't really change the article. And I do have on my copy, we just got this afternoon, so
Okay.
and when I first spoke to Jeannie, I was concerned because I thought should talk to Barbara, but when I read it, it really hasn't changed. It's changed some of the words, and I'd be happy to point out to you where those changes are. But if you don't mind, I'd like to do a little background before we talk about the article itself.
Well, we already kind of voted to
we
put it
already
on
voted to
the
include it.
warrant, so I think we're good with this. I just wanted to make sure we had the final language that was going to go forward. And
Okay,
if
well,
this town
it's
council's
what,
approved this, then.
it's what Barbara sent this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
And David, you've reviewed that?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's what's in this printout, is the language for Article 13?
It's except Barbara's initials.
The latest from Barbara.
Yeah. I'm assuming that, I'm just asking the question.
I think that's probably right. Otherwise, that word doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So since it's already been voted,
We don't have to do anything with that one. Okay, so moved on to Article 14, we already voted this one. I think Barbara had some wording change. Is this the wording change that Barbara came up with, David?
Yes.
Okay.
This is this is wording to amend the bylaws.
Okay, so that's fine. Next is Article 15. This was the article that George Shea had originally drafted and proposed. I proposed some language edits, which are reflected here. I don't know if George is 100% on board with these language edits. Thank you, Chief. Get some rest.
Go Gators.
Let's see, so on, I don't know that George was 100% on board with this. I think we still had a little back and forth to go. I also don't know if George plans to do anything with a citizen's petition if he doesn't like this language. I'm happy with this language, but then I
Did
proposed
you
it.
discuss limiting this to compensated positions? Because that limitation is not in here.
Did Barbara make a change in that respect, David, or no? No, I think we did not do anything with compensated positions.
If it's going to be our article, I would like to see that in there. I understand this is a collaborative effort in a sense with George, but I have real problems with this applying to non-compensated volunteer positions. I won't reiterate all the arguments that you, Mr. Chairman, you, Mr. Durensis, and I all made the last time we discussed this with George, but if it's our article, I would propose that it be ineligible to hold any other compensated town position.
And then it could just be period, and you wouldn't need any of the rest of it.
Well, you still need all the rest.
Because at some point, we may be compensating people on boards,
Yes.
okay?
Many towns compensate, for example, the planning board.
Oh, did you hear that, John
missed
Higley? Is that an idea you want us to float for this town meeting?
We'll take up a collection for you, John. You know, you can have half of our compensation. Yeah.
All right, so just put the word compensated before town?
Right, and I think Paul's right, Article Romanet 4, we need to have in, which is the carve-out for the prohibition being inconsistent with state law. It's the state of California found out recently, that's recently. The article, subsection 4 has a carve-out unless such prohibition is found to be inconsistent with state law, and that needs to be in my opinion, because that could change. So I would just add compensated in front of town position.
I would put compensated after town position, so it doesn't imply that the selectmen are trying to look for a way to get compensated. So it would say ineligible to hold any other town position if that position is compensated.
It's fine.
Okay.
Now, I suspect that means we may get a competing citizen petition. But I don't know, I haven't been in the discussions with George.
Yeah, the other thing that does is, it does not, well, it still doesn't carve out the teachers, the firefighters, and the police, than anybody else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the one who voted against this, and I'm gonna continue to vote against it. This is so anti-volunteer. We've been trying over the last few years to recognize volunteers. Our community runs on the basis of volunteers. We had to deal with a lot of unhappy volunteers who had to deal with that recall article. They all felt they were being disrespected. At least those that talked to me said they felt disrespected with that. I feel they're gonna feel disrespected with regard to this thing. So if somebody is a teacher, they can never be a selectman.
Or a fireman or a policeman,
It just,
or anybody working at town hall.
why would
Yeah.
we wanna treat people this way?
I agree,
It's just-
Paul.
So what are we gonna do? We're gonna pull this off the warrant?
Well, I'm gonna put it to a vote. I'm gonna vote against it. I'm gonna vote against it as well.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, of
including-
removing it or including
I
it?
just tricked you guys. Okay, it's on the warrant now.
It almost worked. Mr. Chair.
He's good, he's been.
Is your motion to include it or to delete it?
I don't think there was a motion on the table. I just said all in favor. I wanted to see if you guys would vote.
I'll move to remove the, Article 14 from the,
15.
15,
15, sorry, from the warrant.
and I'll second it,
Okay.
provided you kick
All in
Mike when
favor,
we vote.
George? Opposed? Okay. So 15 comes out. 16, this is Nancy's language, or this is Barbara's language? What language is this, David?
There are two languages there.
There's two, what do you mean there's two languages?
There are
here?
two articles, I'm sorry.
On 16, there's two articles? What are you talking
Right.
about? On
No, this packet only has
This one only has
one.
one article, David.
I thought we put both, Jeannie, I thought we put Barbara's and
No, 'cause
Nancy's
the
in.
only thing different from Barbara's was they had the question marks.
Oh, that's right, to fill in
And
the
so Nancy
assessor.
filled it in and Barbara was fine with that. She didn't want to do
All
that.
right,
Oh,
so
so
this is
we
language
didn't
we just
have
got
to.
recently on this?
Yeah.
I have a question, Nancy. How is this different from last year's article?
It is not different from last year's article, except for the changes that Barbara made.
Well, which are, that's what I want to discuss, is what was what are the changes?
Okay. In section 2, she has added that sentence that Jeannie just told you the moderator would appoint, because there was no provision for, if the person who was the topic of the inquiry was the chairman of the Board of Assessors, we had not addressed the fact that the moderator would appoint another assessor, another member of the board. So she has put that in there. She's also rearranged a little bit. The verbiage about the town administrator shall receive documents, so forth, that was at the end of section 2 last time. She has started, no, not that one, excuse me. At section 3. Last year, it said the meeting will stay in session, et cetera. She has started that out with the review committee shall review the alleged complaints, et cetera, the way it's here. And then the town administrator will present all the facts. And I believe that was documented facts in my original thing. She's taken documented out and just has facts in there. And the town administrator will present all the facts, including any testimony before the review committee, and I had in there, and the financial official, and I have not asked her why, but she took the financial official out, so I guess because it's their choice whether they're there or not, I would assume. And then she has rearranged the language a little bit, but it says the same thing. She has said here, after all the evidence has been received, the review committee will vote to excuse, censure, or remove the financial official. And the way I had it, I said, then will a vote of the review committee be taken to excuse? It's the same thing, only rearranged the words. So it's just that piece of section 3 that's a little different, and then the sentence that she added with the question marks in section 2.
We don't see any question marks here. so-
Oh, well, we inserted that the moderator would appoint another member of the Board of Assessors. And Jeannie ran that by Barbara. She said that was fine.
So section 2, where it says an elected financial official if not otherwise involved, I don't know what involved means. Why would we not say if not the subject of the complaint?
We could.
Could?
We could.
I would say that.
I'm sorry, where, your first paragraph, section 2?
Section 2, Chuck, yeah.
Which sentence? I'm not finding it.
After it says an elected financial official, it says in parentheses, if not otherwise involved. I think it should say, if not the subject of the complaint.
I can't imagine that Barbara would have an issue with that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It just tightens it up a little. And then, the other comment, question I had was the last paragraph of section 3, the last sentence, I guess it's a paragraph, there's an indent before, well, we don't have a space. But it says, the assistant to the financial official shall perform the duties of the office with additional compensation to be determined until the next annual or special town election, except that any vacancy in the Board of Assessors office created as a result of this act shall be filled in accordance with the provisions set forth in the Mass General laws. We've had 2 vacancies in the treasurer's office in recent years where the selectmen have filled that position. I don't know why the selectmen would not be filling this position rather than the assistant automatically becoming the treasurer or the town collector. If the selectmen have the right to appoint somebody, if there's a vacancy in the office, they should be able to appoint that person. Particularly
Well-
if the person at the top was stealing money and the person who's second in charge didn't catch him. I'm not sure I want the assistant to be the treasurer.
Well, I don't think it says here
Collector.
that they'll be appointed treasurer, but if you're more comfortable in saying you
Well,
would
it says they shall
appoint.
perform the duties of the office. It's the same thing. I'd rather not go through, 9 months or a year without a treasurer if we don't have to. We've had that problem before.
Do you want to make it a fallback? In other words, set it up so that it's the designee of the Board of Selectmen, or if no one is designated, the assistant to financial?
Or could it be
Have that as a fallback?
the language as, what we have now that the position will be filled as stated in our current, but, because if a treasurer, like we had the treasurer resign this year and the Board of Selectmen appointed somebody in their place, why wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, why don't we
I
just
agree.
say that
Just say-
the vacancy in the office will be
Will be
filled
filled
in
as,
accordance
in
with
accordance
law or
with,
something like
with
that.
our current bylaws or something like that.
Yeah, it's not
It's
our
not our
bylaw. I
bylaws,
think
it's
it's
a-
a state law.
It's a mass
law.
state
This-
law. Okay,
Statute that the selectmen can.
that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we don't need to talk about compensation or anything.
Can you tell us is that last paragraph?
In section 3.
Yeah, last paragraph of section 3.
So we would say the vacated position will be filled in accordance with law.
In accordance with the provisions set forth in the Massachusetts general laws, which is what the last sentence is.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay,
It's
will be
a-
filled, and then we can just
Yep,
cross everything
Filled
out until it
in
says.
accordance with provisions set forth in
Right.
Yeah,
that last.
yeah, that makes it shorter too.
Jeannie likes that, less words in the warrant.
So instead of set forth, and I would rather say of provisions of the Massachusetts general laws.
We can designate John Higley to do it.
Okay.
I'm impressed you guys want to do something in accordance with the law.
Once in a while.
You've been watching too much national news.
Okay, good. That's good, Nancy. This is good.
It's terrific.
Mike, can you repeat? Did you remove set forth? Is that what
Yeah,
you just said?
said fourth in, I just changed it to of.
With the
Okay.
provisions of the
Okay.
Massachusetts general laws,
All right, so do we have a motion to
So
put
move.
this on?
as amended.
I'll second it. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, 3-1. For the record, Paul, are you opposed for any particular reason, if you want to say, or?
Yes, well, the same reasons I've been saying for years. The easy way to deal with the financial officers and removal thereof is to make them appointed as, I think, 175 communities.
That just
Do-
light a fuse and.
And that's really the way to go. But, and if you're going to do a halfway measure, then the halfway measure would be to have the removal power in the hands of the Board of Selectmen, because that's the halfway step towards making the position appointed. But instead of having the Board of Selectmen involved in this, we're creating a special review committee who are not people who are used to hiring and firing and know all the ins and outs of the, let's say, the administrative processes. And it just strikes me as being a generator of lawsuits and litigation. And it's impractical, because by the time you finish these lawsuits, whatever wrongdoing was happening would have continued for years. So I've spoken on this before, so it's basically the same things I've already said.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I voted to include it on the warrant because I think it warrants discussion at advisory public hearing and at town meeting. Last year, I did not support this article, and I'm not sure I would necessarily support the article, but I feel like it warrants discussion in
Yeah,
general.
and
in
I
the
would say
town.
last year, I didn't support it because I thought it was very awkward. A lot of the same things Paul said. I also know it's been a year and we haven't come up with anything better, and our town council hasn't found anything better in any other town, so it still seems to me, given some of the problems we've had in the not-too-distant past, we ought to have a way to remove financial officials. Not that any of the elected officials have been the problem, but we've, got a potential for issues. We're a small town. We're very highly reliant on our financial officials, and if somebody goes bad, and Nancy's the one who's pointing this out, it's could create huge problems for the town. So I commend you for trying to figure out a way to make that not happen.
Well, the other point that we don't focus on a lot is that a person could become incapacitated and unable to step down, and this gives you an easy process to move on, although you don't have to worry about me, because David's already offered to pull the plug should anything happen like that for me, so.
It was mercy.
But there are multiple reasons why you might want to have this in place, and as I said before, I hope we would never have to use it if there's an instance like that. And we have a process that before we get into that process, and someone sees that there is a process and there is credible evidence that something's going on, that they would choose to resign rather than go through that process. When the statute was in place, the Department of Revenue told me that they didn't use it anymore. That's why they took it out. But that statute was there, so when towns had a problem, people chose to resign rather than go to the state and have the state prosecute. And now the statute isn't there, and the state hasn't passed that authority to cities and towns. This would give us the authority if the legislature made a law for Sherborn through a home rule petition. That would give us the authority to put this process in place.
Okay. Thank you. It also says the selectmen can approve amendments which are within the scope of the general public objectives, so if somebody comes up with a better way to do it, I think we could do it.
Yeah, I would refer it to the Government Study Committee. That's a later article here. Have them take a look at stuff and come back and report on that, rather than
Okay.
something like this.
All right,
But-
dog, no, that's fine, that's a fair, those are all fair comments, thank you. Dog license
We've already
penalty,
voted
we
on all
voted that,
those.
we voted on all the rest of these, I think.
Except for the ones up the top. Did we vote on the like the general, like.
I think we decided we didn't really need, those
we
go
didn't
on
need-
automatically.
Go on automatically.
Yeah, yeah, so,
Just to play it safe, I move that all, that Articles 1 through
10.
9
9, yes, okay.
Right.
go
Second.
on the warrant.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? That's good.
We worked with the moderator to group those in that way.
Yep, we did last time.
That's right.
Okay, so David, you've got all the changes that need to go on this?
Yep.
All right, we have the planning board represented here. Are you here because of these zoning articles, or what? No, just there was nothing else to do tonight? You just wanted to come out? You just wanted to come out, charging your phone? Okay, perfect.
Cabin fever.
It's a Warren building.
Before we leave the subject matter, so,
Yeah.
just so I have clear the timeline, if we've now approved the warrant as is, do we need to have it come back again? Can we have it put in final form and just come by and sign it during the week?
You can vote to make it the amendments and then sign it, drop in and sign it after the edits are made, or we can make the edits right now.
When does it have to actually be signed and mailed out by?
The timeline was in there.
Well, I just think it's cleaner if there's gonna be a hearing and bloody
Well, and that-
Saturday and all
As,
that.
as the notice went out today, Jeannie, for the, for the advisory public hearing, and in that notice, it says a copy of the warrant is available in the selectman's office, so it should be.
Can be a draft one.
Right.
I believe last year we posted it.
But it'd be good if it was a final one, right?
It'd be good.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
We should do that.
So could I move that we issue the warrant as amended by tonight's discussion with the changes to be made, and the selectmen come by and sign it?
Yes. Second. All in favor? I'm just not gonna be able to sign it tomorrow, that's all.
Well, do you want to have it done tonight?
Yeah, if we can get it done
Yeah,
tonight,
what-
we'll do it.
Can you get it done tonight?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of stuff.
I mean, you already voted to do it, to sign it, so she can continue to do it while you go into executive
Yeah,
session.
that's what we're gonna do.
You can go change it.
Thanks, Jeannie. Do you have all the
Jeannie?
changes from David?
Jeannie? No, you don't.
Okay.
There were a couple of other, just small.
This could be a short town meeting, which would be nice.
Those are the only pages.
Oh, thank you. Look, this is fancy, David. This is-
Oh, isn't that nice? You can
All right,
actually
the board
see it.
will now
Wait, do we
consider,
have to do the,
What about
do
the
you have
town-
other stuff?
I thought we skipped all this other stuff. We skipped the payroll warrant. Does the town administrator have any reports?
No, other than I was gonna read the results of the caucus, but I didn't have it. so.
Okay. Selectmen items. Anybody have any selectmen reports?
And the March 15th and March 17th meetings have already been set.
I was just gonna say, for my own report, that, I think we owe a lot of thanks to fire, police, and CM&D. We've had two bad storms, just like the rest of the state has. Our town has gotten hit pretty hard with power outages, with trees down and road conditions, but we've also done a really good job. I think all those forces have done a really good job of getting things fixed and turned around and back online as quickly as possible, subject to the scheduling of NSTAR and Verizon on the various services. And I know they've also been effective at pushing those groups to come out here. So we had power back on a lot quicker than a lot of places on over the weekend, and hopefully the power will come back on soon for folks who are without power tonight, who wouldn't be watching it anyway on TV if they didn't have power.
I'd also just like to say, I did see the text from David today that you guys had on the website that the town hall became a charging station, and I think that was a great idea to allow people to come in here and.
Get warm and charge their phones.
My whole family was here, charging their devices.
Oh, you wanted free babysitting, is that what it was?
All right, and do we need to set another meeting after the 17th, or do that next week?
Yeah, it would be good if you wanted to go 2 weeks after, it'd be the 29th of March?
Yep, I mean, I probably will not be there that night, but that's fine, you guys can all meet.
Well, you don't have to have it.
Well, I think you should be there, Mike. There's only a 4-person board to begin with. and every view is important. So if we can accommodate you, we ought to accommodate you.
Well, what are we gonna do then? The 28th? So it's,
I can't do the 28th.
okay,
How about the 26th, Monday night?
6th is Monday night.
Works for me.
Yeah, I can do that.
I don't, oh yeah, I think I can, sorry. Yes, I think I can do the 26th.
Yes,
Monday, the 26th.
I like these 7 o'clock meetings too. I think this has been a nice change.
So you want it at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, 7 o'clock PM. Okay, thank you, guys. All right, so now we can read our motion. The board will now consider entering into executive session under Chapter 38, Section 21-2 to conduct, to strategize about contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Sean Colleen, CMD Director / Facilities Manager. The board, we're going to return to open session, David? I think we don't need to.
I don't think you're gonna need to.
Sean's not going to be here anyway. We'll not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Second by Selectman Yan. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Yan?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Abstain.
Abstain, and I am aye, having passed by a vote of 3-0 to 1 at 8:27 PM. The open session is closed. We are now in executive session.
I think it's 8:26 and a half, but that's fine.